All right, here we go. Warming up to Star Citizen. Into some Anthem. Clearing my mind.
Hey, checked in lately? Off somewhere. Check in when you can.
Don't worry. I'm sure I can back you up in a field just as well as Owen.
You tracked down Howlick, yeah? Oh, one of the greats. Such a wonderful laugh. Hope he finds it again.
We'll see.
Lucky.
Hey Corpse, how you doing?
Just came here, there were banners hanging in the enclave. I wonder when they all came down.
The Legionnaires' answer to Tarsis. It could be that completing her trials might open all of their tombs at once.
Open the Cortex. Okay. Cortex. This isn't the Cortex. Hmm. All right. Yep. This is what I gotta do. Ultimate defeats. And multi-kills. Oh. They got me all frozen up. What are they protecting over here?
Where the hell did he go?
Detecting a big wave of Shaper energy somewhere close at hand.
Huh. So we're going to do the news in, I think it says 19 minutes. All right.
Scorpion attacks have been frequent in this area. Watch your step.
Scorpion attacks. Nearby downed ally. Oh, I see him. I think they got him back up. Oh, what's this tunnel up here? Tunnel. Oh yeah, all kinds of stuff in here. Holy crap. I didn't mean to do that. Nice. Oh, wow. Holy crap. Okay. Do it your way. Holy crap, almost dead. Holy man. They got me good. Oh. Gotta get my health back up. There we go. Some more health. There's health to pick up if I went there. Come on, health, come back. It came back last time, my health did. Come on. Oh. Got some of those red things on the ground there. Where's my health? Holy crap. Get me out of here. Got some health back. Got a little bit of ammo back. Didn't die. That was crazy though. See if we can get a multi-kill. Ah! Alright. Bad place. Be alone. If you have a party, that would be good. We're gonna go into the news now. And the free play. All right. All right. Star Citizen news. Gonna go through them real quick till I find something. Four days ago, we already did it. Already did it. Done that one. Hey, Montoya. Ship sail, we did it. Minion Soldier. 5 hours ago. Since there's not much news, oh, it's 31 minutes long and he's gonna answer those quick. No, not doing it. Citizen Gamer. Last cast yesterday. Oh boy. 10 hours ago. Board Gamer. Oh, wait a minute. Super Mac. My mistake.
Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. So in this video I'm going to go over what is planned for the final patch of 2019. This is 3.8, which is due at the end of December of this year. It's a long way off, but there are some exciting things coming. Also, Erin Roberts did say on RTV recently that they are confident that they can achieve everything coming in the 2019 roadmap and hopefully bring additions to it rather than take things away. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see about that. But with that said, kicking off with characters, we have the Microtech collection. Now, this is clothing worn by the population around Microtech, like what we've seen with Hurston and Port Olisar, their own sort of style. We also have a mission giver for Microtech called Eddie Parr. Not sure what his role is, but I'm sure we'll find out more as time goes on. Now, for locations, as you've probably guessed, Microtech Planet is one of them. It also brings the new Babbage landing location, or the main landing location of Microtech. Microtech is a very icy, snowy planet which had a bit of an error during its terraforming, causing it to create a very hospitable environment. It also has 3 moons, which will be coming in 3.8. It has Clio, Euterpe, and Calliope. I always get that one wrong. And again, we'll see more of those progress as time goes on. For other locations, we have cargo space stations unoccupied. This is very much like the cargo space stations coming in 3.7, but like the truck stops, they are derelict with limited facilities and hopefully creatures, aliens, pirates, other things on board. Sometimes just completely empty, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm very excited for these unoccupied stations in the more far reaches of Stanton. We also have refinery space stations, which are the places to refine ore into usable materials for industry, trade and crafting, plus the unoccupied variations of the refinery stations too. So we'll have truck stops, cargo space stations and refinery space stations, many of them derelict, many of them working, some of them partially working. That I cannot wait for. Anyway, in AI, we have FPS Combat Behaviors version 2. So this is creating varied and believable combat behaviors for the enemy AI to adopt in battle, from using different weapons depending on groups, solos, maybe player actions as well, and introducing different levels of skill. Again, further development of the AI is going to be a lot of fun. Also, it brings a new style of AI flight, which is a ace pilot. So creating a highly skilled AI combat pilot who uses decoupled, uses their ship loadout to the best ability, and also uses the environment to their advantage. Hopefully by that time I'll have practiced with the new flight model and become quite adept at it to take these guys on. Anyway, on to gameplay. We have dynamic mission systems, so using the back-end simulation and player actions to vary the mission locations, the mission rewards, along with other parameters for a more systemic universe. I'm surprised that's coming that late on in the year. It would be nice to have that earlier on so that we can have a bit more diversity in the mission.
I'm surprised they still have PCIe cards.
Also, Vehicle HUD version 4, so improvements like storing results and an interface to adjust the strength of the scan. We also have mag boots, so allowing players to walk on the walls in areas without gravity. That's going to be very useful for exploring derelicts and places without the gravity. Along with that comes zero push and pull, so if you're not wearing an EVA suit, you'll be able to physically pull yourself around the ship and not just be stranded. Seated item handling, so using items and weapons when sat down. For example, the Dragonfly passenger being able to fire and use med pens and whatnot. They also put in security systems for gameplay, so basically this security system will control who has access to areas and objects based on various factors such as reputation, ownership, key cards and factions, auto-issuing warnings if someone breaks the law, and if ignoring the law, they'll be flagged as a criminal for security forces to come and find them. That I think is very important, and I'm looking forward to that, especially being an org leader. Also, ship-to-ship docking, so leading on from ship-to-station docking from 3.7, this is allowing smaller ships to dock to larger ships while in space. Very important stuff. Again, it's a shame it's coming so late on, but at least it's coming this year. And finally, for gameplay, we have Salvage version 1. Now, this obviously was supposed to be slated for 3.5. Bringing it into 3.8 is quite a heavy pushback. But as they've mentioned, priorities change, a lot of it depending on Squadron 42. This will just be, as we've heard, stripping materials from ship hulls, both on foot and in ships, requiring the players to scan the environment for debris, and once harvested materials, they can then be sold at a kiosk. That is it for gameplay. Some exciting things there. Let's move on to ships and vehicles. We have the Drake Cutlass Blue rework, the Anvil Karak, so that's exciting, getting that onto 3.8 in this year. That is at 8 out of 57 so far, and we've seen this coming along very quickly. I'm actually surprised it's 3.8. I would have thought it would be a little earlier because of the amount of progress they're making, but hey-ho. The Asperia Prowler, which I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to receive. This is a very cool ship, a drop ship, based on the Taveran design, taken over by Asperia, who just recreate the old and alien ships. And finally, for ships,
I'm excited for the Prowler.
C. Now, this is at 25 out of 45. It was already quite far along, but it got pushed back and pushed back because they need ship-to-station docking. Now that's coming in 3.7. The ship will be ready for 3.8. So, weapons and items for 3.8. We have the Clausen Werner Sledge Mass Driver Revision. This is a ship weapon. The Lightning Bolt Co. Atskev Electron Shotgun. Atskev. Anyway, that's an FPS shotgun. Maybe a new damage type. Definitely a new company. Armitage Lanka Pneumatic Pistol. Again, a new FPS type weapon, I would think. And a new company as well, which is nice to see these new companies coming in. And then finally for Cortec, it's just general performance optimizations. Nothing about server meshing, unfortunately, or anything about maybe server-side OCS, but I'm sure we'll have heard more about that throughout the year. Anyway, that is it for the 3.8 update. Remember, things can likely get shifted, especially after each patch that they release, they do reassess things, and the idea is they will do whatever is necessary. But Aaron has said they're quite confident they can achieve everything that's on the roadmap, so hopefully we'll just get new additions. That said, it's great that they're aiming to get Microtech in this year, with Salvage, the Karak, the Prowler, the Hull C also coming. That is very exciting. I am very hyped for these unoccupied stations, if you haven't guessed already. Hopefully containing something exciting and some scary gameplay, more Dead Space style gameplay. Also, getting new locations for us to trade is going to be very useful. Having dynamic missions means things will get less repetitive. Mag boot and push and pull while exploring wrecks will be very challenging but interesting and fun. And also being able to set parameters for guests or unwanted guests on board sounds like it could really change the game as well. Anyway, that was 3.8, guys. Do, as always, let me know your thoughts on this. Hit that subscribe button. I will be delving further into the roadmap and seeing what more it could all mean. Follow me over on twitch.tv/SuperMacBrothersRyan if you've got anything to say about the roadmaps or anything at all about the game. Do come over and say hello. Big thank you to my patrons. If you do want to support my channel even further, guys, it is much appreciated. The link is below in the description. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.
All right, Super Mac. Now we got board. 8 hours ago.
Every week, I'm going to be looking through Spectrum and the forums for dev responses on particular topics. This time, we're looking at Star Citizen Network reworks and the organic shader. Server client and network optimization is core to the multiplayer nature of Star Citizen, and there was a continuation of a thread that we were looking at recently, links below, with a question from ELEC. Can you also talk a bit about the upcoming actor networking rework and how it'll be in comparison to the current tech, especially if it helps decreasing the movement and shot delays between players and the forward and backward jumping of ships flying parallel in the verse? IG Gordon replied, I can talk about it a bit. I'm the programmer currently working on the actor networking rework. It's split into two parts, upstream and downstream. First, to clarify what an actor is, in the current game, that is any humanoid character either controlled by an actual human player or by an AI running around in the verse. It does not affect ship or weapon networking. They're different enough that they use different systems, though they do all have some common elements and strategies. Upstream refers to the communication from the local client up to the server. Currently, the actor movement is client authoritative. This means that when you press the W button to move forward, locally your client moves you forward and then sends the new position up to the server, which then replicates it to all other remote clients. This has a number of issues, not least it being a nightmare for anti-cheat, as well as it having an effect on perceived lag. Most notably, if someone else has a poor connection, you see them teleporting about a bunch. We are moving actor movement, and indeed their entire state, to being fully server authoritative. When you press the W button locally, that is bundled up in an action and then sent off to a component called the actor action handler. This component replicates this action up to the server, and then it's processed on both the local client and the server will move you forward, hopefully the same amount. There's a whole lot of code to make sure it does, and the position from the server is then replicated to all clients, with remote clients accepting it, same as before, and the local client validating against it. Too much divergence and they're moved to where the server thinks they are, or rather were, since by the time it's got back down, he's likely moved on. We reset and then rerun the inputs since the frame we were reset to. There are a bunch of new complexities with all of this. We have to do our best not to miss any actions. We have to take into account the time it takes the actions to get up to the server. We have to appropriately deal with any divergence between the client and server, and we have to have methods of mitigating lag. The most obvious user-facing problems to this will be improved validation and slightly improved experience when facing players on a poor connection. For the validation, since the server is fully authoritative and can tell us exactly when something has diverged, we can better cope with that. The previous method was very susceptible to poor server frame rate or network latency, manifesting most obviously with the mobiGlas flickering open and then closed rapidly, or ladders being a bit clingy. Those changes have already made it back into the main branch. Actually, expect them in 3.5. For playing with or against players with a poor connection, you will see them teleport around less, though on their own clients they will rubber band more as the server corrects them. For the most part, think of this change that has some minor improvements, but is mainly just a precursor to the next part. Downstream refers to the communication from the server to all remote clients. Currently, to smooth out actor movement on remote clients, we artificially inject a 250 millisecond delay into all of their movement processing. Being able to see a quarter a second into the future allows the various movement and animation systems to give a better visual result, and having that buffer mitigates the problem of lag spikes. For us, this is not really a sustainable solution. Everything being 250 milliseconds out contributes to the game feeling laggy and is an overwhelming factor in the movement and shot delays that people have mentioned. The plan is to now reduce this rewind amount significantly to something sensible, hopefully around 2 frames instead of 15, with improved dead reckoning and state processing, helping to cover over the visual impact of this. Another factor of this will be the remote client patching that is already implemented but needs some tweaks and bug fixing before going fully live. This means, for example, when I kill something on my client, I can temporarily take control of that remote actor to immediately play a hit/death reaction. Since you tend to be looking directly at someone when you kill them, any latency on them playing the reaction is very noticeable at the moment. So removing the need for the hit to go up to the server and then come back down reduces the perceived lag significantly. Obviously, if the server disagrees with you, you didn't actually hit or kill them, then it will be undone on your client. Though this should only happen in cases of extreme lag or cheating. We've been planning and working on this rework for quite some time and have confidence that it should improve things significantly. So better server, client reg, less teleporting, more smooth characters with less lag and better animation responses has been kind of well needed for a while now, certainly for the immersive, polished experience that Star Citizen eventually wants to be. Obviously, it is hard for them to do the sort of like networking tweaks for that, and they're going to continue to improve server and client optimization in regard to general systems and features using less resources, what data gets sent and saved to both get more players on a server and for it to be as a good looking experience as possible, but also a state that PvP isn't really frustrating because of delays and it favoring sort of like the laggy person. You also want to be able to see that, like, when people are running around, when you're multi-crewing with other characters, when you're doing an op together, you don't want them to be rubber bounding everywhere. So that is something they're working on, and it's great that they've responded in the way that they did. There was another thread by Mark_FC. What exactly is the organic shader? What improvements will it bring to planets? Will it be released with the next patch 3.5? Divi from CIG responded, 1. Mostly nicer looking rocks that better to be rubber bounding everywhere. So that is something they're working on, and it's great that they've responded in the way that they did. There was another thread by Mark_FC. What exactly is the organic shader? What improvements will it bring to planets? Will it be released with the next patch 3.5? Divi from CIG responded, 1. Mostly nicer looking rocks that better integrate with the terrain. 2. With the distribution and ecosystem improvements on the horizon, the redone assets on the planet's surface with the new shader are planned to be released in tandem with the improvements, as the shader will benefit from data that comes with the improvements to realize its full potential. So no, even though the shader will be close to its final iteration with 3.5 internally, and having a bare bones version with a different feature set already being in use for minables, it will not see widespread use with 3.5. Naming can be somewhat confusing as it is mostly to differentiate between solid organic objects formed naturally and solid machine objects made from metals and plastics that use the hard surface shader. It is unlikely that it will see much use for plants as its features do not really bring much benefit for them. You can find the source links to those threads down in the links below. If you've got any threads that you want me to take a look at, or any cool information, or anything you want to bring to my attention, again, chuck them in the comments down below. Every month we have a Star Citizen ship giveaway. For February, it's for a Cutlass Black and Star Citizen game package. All you need to do is be subscribed to the channel and comment on any of my videos made during the month. If you don't have a gaming PC yet, or you are upgrading, instead consider Shadow Cloud Gaming. They allow you to leverage the powers of the internet to stream a high-spec Windows 10 environment to any other PC, Mac, or device like a smartphone or tablet. It is working really well in Star Citizen's 3.4 branch, and be sure to use the code BOARDGAMER if you do decide to check it out to get a discount. Links below.
Alright, here's Board's video. There's a link to it. Okay. See if the noob's got anything. Ooh.
Good
Joystick.
evening, fight fans, and welcome to the fight of the century. I'm your announcer for the night, so let me take you through how this evening's going to play out. We're going to have a good look at the contenders and review their stats. We'll have a guess at where their strengths and their weaknesses are, and after that, we're going to toss them in the ring. Like with any fight, these fighters are going to trade kicks and punches. Both are going to get beat up and beat down, so our officials are ready to step in and make the call. Don't worry, there's still a good chance of seeing some victory by knockout. So let's get it on.
Headphones on. It is so awesome.
Up first, we have Thrustmaster in the blue trunks. They fight out of the US, but they train in China. The gym started in 1992.
Rock'em Sock'em robots? I didn't see those at the house when I was there. Those are Rock'em Sock'em robots, dude. Those are a toy from my childhood.
They're the oldest, and their fighting techniques are proven and well known. They fight in all classes, but their biggest showing is in the super lightweight and the super heavyweight. The Warthog. It's a beefy fighter, loved and known all over the world. This one's seen as the real deal. A super heavyweight. The Warthog grip is a tank. Weighing in at 1,000 grams, it's actually 3 times heavier than any other rival. The buttons are soft, but in a good way. Construction is solid, with decent ergonomics. The grip is right-handed only, and the wrist rest lacks any adjustment whatsoever. The gimbal internally is 100% plastic with a good sensor. The exterior case, base, top plate are heavy steel, ensuring it'll never move on a desk. It's a smooth-working, spring-loaded ball and collar design. Resistance is uniform and graceful, but don't expect any fancy moves. This team is known for no tuning, no customization, and because it's made out of plastic where it counts, it's been known to let people down after a little bit of a beating. This heavyweight fighter comes with a heavyweight price tag, but compared to some of the newer fighters, it has a lot of trouble keeping up. Up next, in the light blue shorts, we have VKB. Fighting international but training out of China, they're very well known throughout the fighting community. They've been all over the scene since all the way back to 2003. Their main contenders feared, and with good reason. The Gunfighter 2 gimbal is all metal and fully tunable. It's accurate and capable of lasting all the way to the end of any fight. A true threat in the ring. It's a single cam and single spring design and very easy to work on. It has one sneaky move that no one else has. It's friction clutch. This features a crowd favorite, giving VKB Gunfighter that extra level of tuning that others don't. It's super low profile and compact, but that doesn't mean anything. VKB is a true contender. Watch out for the Gunfighter 2. The MCG is currently VKB's newest fighter, but that's all going to change as soon as Cosmosema releases. MCG was a top contender since it was released. Light but deadly means it can make rapid changes, taking only your input and nothing else. Quality plastics without any fluff, ensuring that it lasts a lifetime. Internally, this fighter has it where it counts. A set of analog mini sticks, double triggers, and an analog brake. Showing its age, the grip is right hand only, lacks a Z-axis, but its fully adjustable rest means it's immediately comfortable with great ergonomics. And last but not least, we have Virpil in the red trunks. They're fighting in all international circles but have their dojos in Europe and Asia. They have 2 main fighters but 1 set to retire. The MT50 gimbal is taking a victory lap before hanging up its gloves for the last time. In its short career, it stood out for a unique cam design and external adjustability. In seconds, with nothing more than a screwdriver, it would completely change its fighting style. This design made it very tall compared to other fighters. Metal inside and out, it's known for being solid but temperamental, usually stripping out cam screws when performing the most basic tuning for the first time. No doubt, this gimbal caused many swear words to leak out. Virpil's second main fighter is the youngest. The Warbird's a rookie, launching only last year. It launched mature and it's a major contender. Its double cam per axis allows it to have true symmetry and resistance, and it sits in a smaller frame, allowing it to work on a table. It corrected all the quirks of its older teammate and picked up some new tricks. Virpil also brings to the ring a pair of fighters, a young team with some exotic fighting styles. The MT50 hit the scene day one, offering both left and right. They're heavier and made out of softer plastic. They're taller than any other fighter in the ring, and they have a full set of buttons. They fall very short, missing out on an analog stick, and they also lack the Z-axis, but they do pick up some points with an analog brake. The Delta Grip is unlike anything you've ever seen before. It's trained in all the exotic dojos, and its fighting style is basically take the book and throw it out the window. It was designed from the ground up for space sim pilots, and it offers features you've never seen before. It can fight either left or right-handed, and when 2 team up, the end user is completely overwhelmed with button options. It has a mouse wheel, an analog stick, and RGB to dazzle the competition. Its fighting style won't appeal to everyone, as it's thrown away all the regular basics like a flip trigger and a brake lever. It didn't even bother with a wrist rest, but hold on, it has a Z-axis built right into the grip.
Holy crap.
On the first card for tonight is the seasoned Thrustmaster Warthog grip and gimbal, against the retiring MT50 gimbal paired up with the ever-persistent MT50 grip. The MT50 gimbal is discontinued and retiring after this fight, passing the gloves on to the Warbird gimbal. The referee gives the thumbs up, the fighters touch gloves, and the fight is on. Both gimbals have frictionless sensors with great input fidelity. Both have fully fleshed out software, but the Thrustmaster base is a one-trick pony unable to offer grip variation. On the other hand, the MT50 is practically a chameleon, accepting a full range of grips, shockingly even the Warthog grip. The Warthog is heavy, with a solid feel, but that puts a larger load on the already weak centering mech. All metal exterior for both, however the MT50 absolutely kills the Warthog when it comes to the internals. MT50 with a full metal construction against a weak buffet of cheap, greasy plastic. This announcer has witnessed no fewer than 3 Warthogs dying in the ring because of a failing centering mech. Once that happens, you may as well throw in the towel, toss the gimbal in the trash, and move on because it's over. The fight continues. Quality feel, good quality buttons, a wide range of button options, a Z-axis, analog mini stick, flip down trigger, analog brake lever, adjustable spring tension, swappable cams, fine adjustment, and proper support for extensions. The Thrustmaster can't take this beating any longer and falls down early in the second round. The MT50 wins its last fight and leaves the ring with some major issues like thread-locked cam screws, but the stage is set for its replacement. Tonight's main event is between the VKB Gunfighter 2 with its MCG grip against the Virpil Warbird with Delta grip. VKB has a brand new fighter which has Z-axis. We hope to get an opportunity to match Cosmosima against Delta in an upcoming fight.
Gunfighter.
The fighters look ready, thumbs up from the ref, and the fighters touch gloves. Unlike the last fight, both of these fighters are solid inside and out. The Gunfighter and Warbird both have frictionless sensors, which translate exactly what you input. The Gunfighter dominates with massive headroom when it comes to using extensions. It'll take up to 2 size 5 springs per axis. The Warbird with its dual cam design is smoother and more balanced, but it runs out of steam if you apply more than a 1-inch extension. Oh, the Gunfighter 2 hit the Warbird with a low blow, the drag clutch. That hit connected unanswered. The fight continues round after round, each fighter land good hits that are countered by the other. Both of these fighters are the real deal, but the Delta grip can switch up hands. It has an Xbox thumbstick and a mouse wheel, numerous 8-way hat switches, and a double trigger. Plastic feels good and it has a slight grippy texture. The MCG is currently right-hand only, but it does have a pair of analog sticks, a brake, a flip trigger, and a ton of hat switches. It's strong and it's made to last, but it feels just a little bit hollow compared to the Delta. The fight continues. Quality feel, good quality buttons, wide range of button options, a Z-axis, analog mini stick, flip down trigger, analog brake lever, adjustable spring tension, swappable cams, fine adjustment, and proper support for extensions. As expected, a full 10 rounds, the final bell, and now it's up to the judges. We just witnessed an epic battle against two of the best, and this fight can go either way. The scores were tallied and the judges, based on the performance for a space sim, have decided. By a split vote, the judges decided that the win goes to Warbird with Delta Grip. For Space Sim, Virpil nudged out the Gunfighter 2 and MCG, but I suspect Virpil knows that VKB has a new fighter that's razor-focused to fight specifically in this domain. In the future, I would love to announce that fight for you. I can't wait to see that matchup. So that was fun. This video was a massive undertaking. I know many of you won't agree with my winner or its reasons. To be clear, if you choose either VKB or Virpil, you'll be happy. Both are solid choices for different reasons. This video is just the start, and it's up to you to sound off in the comments with your opinions and favorites. Please do me a solid and share this video, as I believe this was the first time that all of these sticks were on review at the same time. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. Each company has new gear coming out soon, and I hope to get an opportunity to show them to you. Patch 3.5 is just around the corner, and that means some of my findings and opinions may change about these great controllers. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.
Well, that was great. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. That was freaking awesome. That was just freaking awesome. We're just gonna do 2 lore videos, and we're gonna call it the news finished. Lore makers. Alright, where did we leave off? Yeah, we did these 2 right here. Hadrian, yeah, we did the Hadrian. We're on page 2 now. The Tiber and the Garrison. Tiber first.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm your host for today, senior writer Will Weisbaum, and thank you so much for joining us once again, and thank you to the subscribers who make this show possible and all our shows. We are going to dive once again into the fantastic lore behind some of the star systems that you will be visiting in Star Citizen. Today we are looking at Tiber. Now, it is often referred to as the Grinder. The Vanduul call it Korathen, but all you really need to know, the high-level summary, can be summed up with the travel warning, which says, do not under any circumstances transit to the Tiber system. Vandal forces have established a permanent occupation. So this is a system that's been embroiled in a lot of Vandal fighting for centuries now. It is very dangerous and very exciting. And let's travel there now and take a look. So we're going to head over in our fantastic star map to Tiber. I did a search for it, but instead of that, let's forget that. And let's go routes and actually travel there. So let's go from the Earth, planet and Sol, to Tiber. And we are going to go in a small ship today. Let's calculate that route. 5 stops, sounds good to me. We'll head through Croshaw. So we'll go on through. Heading out from Earth. Zoom out to Croshaw, we go to Null. Head on over to Caliban. And then from there we go to Orion. In Orion we're going to make one last jump through to Tiber. Whoa! I love that. Welcome to Tiber. Now, Tiber at its core has a K3 type main sequence star. It is often called an orange dwarf or a K dwarf. It is a hydrogen burning star, and it's considered
pretty
very
big green
stable. They exist on the main sequence for a very long time. Tiber is 0.85 AU wide, and that distance right there, that's calculated from when we say how big of a system is, that's the farthest planet's epihelion, which is its farthest point from the star. So in this case, we have a system that's 0.85 AU, which isn't very big. That's actually smaller than the Earth's distance from the sun. And we have in our green band from 0.47 to 0.68 existing right there. And we have 2 planets and an asteroid belt. Let's go over to Tiber 1, kind of just getting an overview of the system right now. So Tiber 1 is located at 0.56 AU, and it is inside the green band. It is a small, dense, rocky planet, and it has a greenhouse CO2 atmosphere, and so that means it traps a lot of this heat that it's getting from being so close to the sun, and it's really unbearably hot inside there, which makes living conditions very unpleasant. Even though the atmosphere is technically breathable, you couldn't spend much time on the surface. And there is a fairly regular weather pattern where you get a slightly lessening of this effect every couple years, so conditions become a little bit more habitable, and you'll have back in the early days, you would have companies and industries using this weather pattern to time when they go down to the planet's surface, and later on, in modern times, you'll have scavengers and salvagers using this weather pattern to time their expeditions, and likewise, even the Vandal seem to coordinate the access to their planet around these regular storm systems. So right next to Tiber 1 is the Tiber asteroid belt, known as Tiber Belt Alpha. It is a very dense belt, and it still has a lot of valuable resources left for mining because of the devastating war that interrupted industry there. It is very dangerous across not only because of how dense it is, but because it was heavily mined by UEU forces, mined in the terms of dropping explodey things into the belt, not mined as in digging up rocky bits. And then right outside of there, we have Tiber 2, also known as the Tomb. And we'll get into a little bit more why it's called the Tomb in just a moment.
Yes, risk, reward, mining.
But this is a terrestrial desert planet, and it is located at 0.81 AU. It's just outside the green band. And from there, that's kind of the system overall. So we can dive now into a little bit of the history of the system. It was first discovered in 2474 as part of Project Farstar. Now, for those of you who don't know, Project Farstar was this big initiative that was to push the boundaries of humanity as far as we can go. So there was this major initiative to discover a whole bunch of new systems and jump points, and a lot was discovered during that time the project ran. And this was part of it, and that was run by the United Nations of the Earth, UNE. So because neither of the planets were that habitable and they weren't really good terraforming candidates, the system wasn't really used for settlement. It was mostly used for industrial purposes. There was mining and industry that went on, and it was kind of slow to grow. Because of Project Farsight, there was a bunch of other systems discovered around the same time, so not that much attention was paid to Tiber. However, later on, you would have an exciting discovery of the Orion system. And because of this jump here, Tiber all of a sudden became a lot more exciting because there was a lot of people going to Orion to take advantage of Armitage, which was an awesome new planet that was discovered there, and everyone wanted a hot piece of the hot Orion action. And so Tiber got like a major rest stop settled outside of the jump point, and all these businesses were trying to take advantage of those travelers moving through the system, get a few credits off them while they could. And that was the brunt of it. Like you would have a mining outpost, refineries, you'd have a couple housing exchanges, which is kind of like Grimhex. Grimhex is a housing exchange that's fallen onto hard times, but housing exchanges are kind of these apartment buildings, for lack of a better term, in space, where workers would find temporary housing while they were working mining asteroid belts or what have you. So in 2650, we had the jump to Orion taking off, but that wasn't meant to last very long because all of a sudden in 2681, the Vandal struck the system and dealt a devastating blow to Armitage. So many deaths on the planet, massive destruction, and it came out of nowhere. We were very surprised by the Vandal. And over the next few years, Tiber would transition from being this industrial system to being this stopping point on the way to Orion to now it's becoming a military staging system. Huge amounts of naval forces were moving into the system in order to be better prepared to fight in Orion. And so a lot of the civilian stations were bought up by the government and transitioned into military platforms. And then this went on for a couple decades until the final devastating blow, which happened in 2712, which is known as the Battle of Orion, when all of a sudden, for the first time in human history, a kingship showed up in Orion and completely wiped the floor with us. The system was abandoned, and all the human survivors came rushing out of the system in a mass evacuation that like really left a lasting effect of the people who were stationed in Tiber. Like there's stories that they told about just seeing all these like heavily damaged ships and injured people coming through the jump point, barely escaping the Vandal attack. So with that mass exodus in Orion now officially in Vandal hands, Tiber became the new front of this burgeoning fight against the Vandal. And everyone was expecting that the Vandal would just push on after taking Orion and come into Tiber and start fighting us there. And so everyone was really nervous, ready for a kingship to come on through. But nothing happened. The Vandal stopped their forward momentum and just hung out in Orion. And so for a long time, Tiber was quiet until 2726, when all of a sudden a Vandal blade showed up out of nowhere far away from the jump point. And it came out of a new system, which we didn't know what it was at the time, but would later be identified as VS1 or Vector. A lot of the Vandal systems that have that V name designation, so they get VS number and then a V name. So in this case, we have VS1, which is known as Vector. So once that contact was made, all of a sudden clans started attacking Tiber, and there was a long, sustained military movement. So in 2732 was the start of what's officially known as the Siege of Tiber, which was just this long, stretched out entrenchment. Now, Tiber itself wasn't that important, but the UEE
This
really
is how
wanted to hold on
heavy
to it.
duty
They'd
when he
already
jumps
lost
around like that.
Orion. They wanted to put the foot down and really defend the empire. So there was no way they were going to give up Tiber. So it became this long, protracted battle. Lasted 4 long years. and the military threw everything they had against the Vandal, nearly losing the system several times. And it was because of this really long, bloody conflict that Tiber got its nickname, the Grinder, because it just ate up all the ships and just spat them out. A whole generation of men and women could be seen around the Empire just bearing heavy scars of the fighting they endured in Tiber. And actually, one of the cybernetic breakthroughs that happened that allowed for improved synaptic responses came because there was such a high demand all of a sudden for cybernetic replacements after this conflict. And the process was known as Tibering, which bears the name of the system. So it was finally in 2736 where everyone's worst fears came true and the Second Kingship came through to the system. And at that point, there was no hope. And once again, the UE had to fall back. One famed squadron, Squadron 214, known as the Black Crows, became famous for their work. They were a bomber squadron flying mostly Gladiators, but they switched rapidly when it was clear that the system was lost to doing search and rescue operations and really trying to move people out of the system. And so the defeat in Tiber was so swift and sudden that the military just wasn't ready. And this time, they were kind of hoping that it would happen like last time, where the Vandal took over a system and then kind of stopped, but that wasn't the case. Once they took over Tiber, they just went rolling on through and moved straight into Virgil and would take it over very quickly, and Virgil was lost within the year as well. So that was kind of the end of humanity's kind of presence in the Tiber system. You'll see now on your screen that there isn't that cool glitchy effect, but if you look at it in the actual star map, you'll see that it's UE classified because there isn't official updated information from the system because it's so hard to get into. Most people who go visit it now are either military operations that still go in to keep tabs on what the Vandal are doing in the system, or it's either outlaws or scavengers looking to kind of make money from
don't mess with
wealth
kingships,
resources,
for sure.
as well as all the salvage that's just floating around in the system. With so many battles over the year taking place here, there's a wealth of kind of military gear and Vandal ships floating around, but it comes at a very high price. And that high price is represented very well on Tiber 2. Tiber 2 is a red desert world, and its orbit is just covered with a huge amount of debris of spaceships. Like you'd almost think it was an asteroid ring, like you'd have around, not an asteroid ring, but a ring like you'd have around Saturn, but it's just made up of ship debris. And the planet's surface is scarred heavily by the conflict that happened there. In addition, you also have on the surface massive Vandal harvesters that are chewing through all the ships and resources and minerals and ores and any bodies they find and grinding them up for the Vandal's own purposes, as well as temporary Vandal war camps that set up residence here. Now, it isn't like there's one clan that owns Tiber. There is actually battles between Vandal clans as they vie with each other to take control of the resources that are to be had here. So in addition to the Vandal themselves being a threat, there is also a threat of being caught in the crossfire from one of these battles between Vandal clans. But on the bright side, it means that the Vandal haven't built up too heavy of a front in the system because of how much they war with each other. So it's always in flux. And so you hear stories of people about trying to do the runs and coming out on the other side or not coming back at all. If you see like an outlaw group in the verse flying a lot of outdated military ships, there's a good chance that they salvage them from Tiber at their great personal risk, which is like a badge of pride amongst various outlaw groups. A lot of you might already have a piece of Tiber in your hangar because part of the Puglisi collection is the AV-8 battle armor replica, which is inside that nice glass display case, is the Resilient Series battle armor made by Aero Future Tech. And it was used by the Marine shock troopers in the Siege of Tiber, and it protected them from ballistic and energy weapons. So that's really cool. So take another look at that when you have a chance in your hangar. So that's about it for the Tiber system. It was a scene of much death and destruction.
I would definitely go
And
salvage old
its fate
ships.
is still unknown. Maybe one day now that Admiral Bishop is once again moving along the front, we can see humanity taking it back, but we'll have to wait and find out what happens there. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thank you for all your support and backing the game, and I hope to see you around. Thanks again.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.
And now we're going to do the Garon system. The Garon system.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy, where we spotlight star systems in the Star Citizen universe and talk about the system itself, a bit about its history, and some insight into some of the choices that we made when kind of coming up with it and conceiving it. I'm Dave Haddock. I'm the lead writer over here at Cloud Imperium Games, and I will be your guide on today's fantastical adventure of sadness. So today, we are going to be talking about a system that's pretty heavily steeped in the history of the UEE and was actually also recently featured in the June issue of Jump Point. So if you're a subscriber, you should go check that out. And for those who don't know, we are going to be talking about the Garon system. Now, as always, I'm going to invoke my usual sort of caveat to say that we're still developing this system, so it's possible that some of the elements that we talk about here might change from now until when the system's actually done, but...
Do I ever think this game will be finished? Wow. This is a hard question. I have my doubts sometimes, but if it does get finished, I'm pretty sure it won't be till like 2025. And I'm not joking. From being realistic and looking at what they got, because server meshing is gonna be something crazy to try to make. Yeah, I'm like 80% sure that the game will get done, and 90% sure it won't be till like 2025.
Just want to let you know so you can keep that in mind. But anyway, let's get started.
I would like it to be finished too.
We're gonna head over here to our trusty star map, where we are currently looking at a familiar place called Earth. All right, and let's see. So we're starting off in the Sol system. Okay, let me turn on jump points. There we go. Zoom back, zoom back, zoom back. Just for ease's sake, we go 2D. So Garon system is over here. So you can see it's a fair, it's like 4 systems away from Sol. And based on sort of where it's situated here, you can see we got jump points that lead it to Idris and Banshee as far as the UEE goes. It goes to the Lear system, which is an unclaimed system, which is home to the out.
I wish they wouldn't have did this and named stuff Vanguard and Idris, because it's gonna make talking in Star Citizen like, well, are you talking about the ship, or are you talking about the system, or are you talking about... That's gonna suck.
Outsiders, if you are familiar with them. And interestingly enough, it actually, if you follow this path right here, takes you down to Bacchus, which is part of the Banu Protectorate, which is a pretty actually kind of fun thing, but we'll get into that a bit later. So one thing actually you'll probably notice if you look closely is that the symbol for Garen is different than sort of all the other ones. It is technically a UEE system, which you can see here and here and here, but it's not. Seems like it's not labeled as such. That's because Garen is what's called a developing system. So system that's basically been put under the Fair Chance Act, which was a sort of a government initiative that was created to protect developing species from interference, so they could basically like develop on their own until they become spacefaring decide to become, or sorry, let me start that again. So one thing you'll probably notice here with the Garen system is actually the symbol for the system itself is a little different than some of the other ones. So these blue ones here are UEE, that one is unclaimed. And even though Garen is technically a UEE system, it actually falls under the Fair Chance Act. So it's actually considered a developing system. And the Fair Chance Act was basically a government bill that was passed that was designed to protect developing species from interference, basically. So basically, we would sort of set up a perimeter around them and shield them from outside interference so they could sort of grow and evolve on their own. And then once they become spacefaring, then we can establish contact and and go from there. So technically, Garen falls under that. And for those of you who are familiar with the system, know that there's sort of a weird backstory to that, but we'll get into that in a second. So anyway, so first off, let's actually talk about the system from a creative standpoint. Garen is actually referenced before the game was even announced.
Welcome to the board.
So it's actually been part of the Star Citizen universe.
Well, thank you for the follow, Grenade Artist. Appreciate it.
I'll include a link in the description to the original post so you can have a read if you haven't seen it. But it was a time capsule. Basically, it was one of the 30 installments that we had released in the days leading up to the original GDC announcement in 2012. And basically, the context for it was a planet of Garen 2 was home to a sentient species that was massacred. And the how and the why they were massacred, we will get into in a little bit. But we'll start off with a sort of overview of the system itself. So jumping in here, I'll go to 3D because it's super cool. So you can see, in a nutshell, Garen consists of 4 planets, and it was discovered in 2874 by Imperial Pathfinders, who basically immediately turned it over to
the sun looks different.
Control. The central star right here is a G-type dwarf star. So you can see that the green zone here is pretty compact. I think Garen 2 is like roughly 1.1 AU away, so it's a kind of a smaller system. So planet-wise, we have Garen 1 here, which is right on top of this star here. So the surface of it, the idea of it is that it's really hot. That like obviously all the star-facing side of it is just basically like kind of a sea of lava, which personally I'm super jazzed about seeing in the game once that actually happens. But otherwise, there's not much else you can do with it because it's so close to the sun that it's too volatile. So we'll actually skip over Garen 2 for the time being because that's going to be sort of the meat of what we're talking about. Oh no, my fault. So we're going to go out to Garen 3, which is way out here. And Garen 3 is basically situated sort of right on the edge of the frost line here. So that's the green, sort of the green zone. Here's
the frost line.
The frost line, and then the end of it is sort of.
Oh, I see the frost line.
So it's sort of right on the edge. But it was sort of, the idea is that it's classified as like a super Earth, but because of its position, basically it's sort of an ice planet. Like there's just sort of there's no life on there. And then last but not least, we have Garen 4, which is way out here. Which is basically just sort of a small kind of rock out in the middle of nowhere. Not a lot really to speak about. There is actually one of the things that we sort of talked about was that there was a sort of a monument that the UEE built out here called the Sentinel, which was sort of meant to commemorate the tragedy of Garen 2 and sort of remind people not to let that sort of awful.
That was a spoiler alert for the meat of the conversation.
That being said, let's jump into Garen 2. So it was basically a rocky terrestrial planet, but the initial sort of surveyors were thrilled and stunned actually to find that there was a civilization on the planet's surface. And while they hadn't attained any kind of space travel or anything like that, like they were clearly sentient. There was clearly, this was the first steps of a society. So
I didn't know it was named after the
at the time.
system.
So I mean, because you got to bear in mind that like while we've sort of had indications of like ancient alien civilizations when we discovered planets, there's the ruins on in Kazi on Terra, and obviously Hades system is just a big graveyard. And of course, whatever animals exist on the planets that have sort of, naturally occurring, oxygen atmospheres and stuff like that. Humanity had only encountered other spacefaring sentient species to this point. So this was sort of a huge deal. And so the Imperator at the time was Linton Messer the 11th. And he decided that it was their obligation to uplift the species. And he gave a very powerful public address that featured the phrase, "We will be gods," which can only lead to good things. And he was coming at this from the sort of right moral center. So anyway, a team was assembled to sort of to study the culture, and it was put under this guy, Michael Cheharelis, and he was sort of tasked with figuring out not only a way to communicate with them, but also exactly how to sort of introduce, technology to them. So it wasn't just about, landing on the planet and just dropping a spaceship and taking off. Like, how to properly kind of bring them up to sort of our level of understanding. So obviously not a very simple prospect. So the team spent years basically sort of being very respectful and unobtrusively kind of studying the aliens and trying to understand their culture, like trying to understand what they had figured out at this point so we could kind of use that as a frame of reference, all that type of stuff. They also ended up doing very, very thorough scans to really understand like the composition of the planet, the sort of the natural resources there, all that type of stuff. So they had a complete picture that they could work from. So unfortunately for pretty much everybody involved, Linton Messer the 11th was pretty much the sort of embodiment of what 2.5 centuries of viciousness, self-entitlement, and corruption can create. So he was a pretty horrible person. Now, before we continue on, it's actually also important to remember that where the rest of humanity was at this period in time. So this is around 2789. Now you had the murder of Anthony Tanaka was 30 years ago. So the sort of very famous incident where this kid was executed. But since then, the seed of revolution had been slowly stewing. There have been kind of more and more activist groups being formed, and we're getting slightly emboldened, and there was this sort of palpable undercurrent to everything going on. I mean, Linton's father, Ulysses, was aware of it and was convinced, though, that sort of this construction of these sort of massive super complexes that just sort of extolled humanity's greatness and stuff like that would be sort of the answer to it that would quell.
I want to
everybody,
get paid to make
calm
this
down,
shit
be
up
like,
too.
Oh, those buildings are super sweet, we're not mad at you anymore, type thing.
We'll make Star System Twistar.
He's wrong. But anyway, in a sense, when Linton sort of staged a coup to overthrow his father and seize power, basically, part of that was actually his sister Fiona went out and supported surreptitiously supported some of these activist groups, and the whole thing was sort of kicked off around this thing. He was trying to Ulysses' sort of legacy was going to be this massive stadium called the Canos Stadium, and at the night of the opening, resistance groups basically bombed it and blew it up, and resistance groups that had been surreptitiously aided by Fiona and consequently Linton basically were responsible for it, and that was what facilitated Linton being able to grab power. So there was a lot of kind of
this planet over here
is violence that was
where the people came, and when they landed, they showed the natives there how to make beer, and then they were very thankful for the beer, and yeah, we could just go on and on. Be great.
Brewing just underneath the surface of the UEE, so things were starting to kind of percolate, and Linton either didn't know or
brew the beer, percolate it.
You could make the assumption that he probably just assumed that people wouldn't have the backbone to stand up to him, because he'd come from a long line of oppressors basically. So arrogance was definitely one of his strong suits. So anyway, getting back to the people of Garentu, years had passed. They're making very slow progress, obviously, because Scheherlis is like being very respectful and all that type of thing. So unfortunately, Linton grew kind of bored with the prospector, just sort of moved on, checked out of that whole idea, or saw something else shiny and went chasing after that. So he kind of gave up on the notion of uplifting the creatures, and especially when he saw one of the very detailed reports listing the volume of resources that the planet had. So he sort of opted for wealth over his own, we will be gods thing. So he completely abandoned Scheherlis' team and retasked them with basically providing information for companies and preparing reports and stuff like that, so he could basically kind of, get terraformers and mining consortiums to start a bidding war and basically rip the planet apart. Just horrible stuff. He would authorize tours to the planet's surface for executives to personally survey the thing. So of course there are these aliens now there who are freaking out because there's these things coming out of the sky and people walking around and pointing at stuff and taking notes and then getting back and flying away and stuff like that. So they were freaking out, obviously. But he didn't care. They sold off the rights, the imperial coffers swelled, and they flipped the terraformers on. So basically, all life on Garentu was asphyxiated to death as their atmosphere was transformed into something that was more habitable, palatable for us, and not for them. So probably one of the more horrifying things that you could do, and callous and heartless and
killed off all those people.
But it was the footage of this that was smuggled out. There was a resistance group called the Tide that smuggled this stuff out, this footage out, and released it to the public, and that turned out.
This is heavy duty shit, dude. This is like makes Hitler look like an angel.
The catalyst that sparked the revolution. So from there, the revolution caught fire, and it just spread and went like gangbusters, and just everybody was up in arms and managed to do it after a couple 100 years of Messer oppression.
Garentu.
They threw them out. So needless to say, in the immediate aftermath of that, the new UEE government was desperate to kind of make amends for this horrible, horrible thing. Now, everything was dead there, so there's not, they couldn't bring them back to life or something like that. But they basically dedicated a lot of resources and mines and companies and stuff like that to try and restore Garentu to its original state. So change the atmosphere back, try and replant stuff, all that type of things. And so that's basically where it's been at. It's been sort of this sort of lasting monument to sort of how desperate our greed can become, but also at the same time, it's the symbol of the thing that basically allowed humanity to kind of, take back their destiny, from awful people. So where does that leave us today? So 2947. What is the system like now?
The turning point.
As I mentioned earlier, Garen is still technically under the Fair Chance Act, which was enacted, the legislation was actually created to prevent something like this from ever happening again. And so they sort of put the system under its control. Mostly, again, it's a symbolic gesture, but again, just sort of an indication of, you know, that they're committed to not kind of doing this sort of awfulness again. So anyway, so the surface of Garen 2 is off limits to civilians, but yeah, they're still kind of doing what they can to kind of bring it back to the way it was before we screwed it up. So outside of that, you can notice right here by the sun, you have Obi Heller, which was actually the original research station that Scheherazades' team used to study the planet, and now consequently is what the scientists were using to try and restore the planet. There's also, we were talking about having like basically a museum for about terraforming and sort of the responsibilities of terraforming and stuff like that, to try and educate the people and again, prevent people from ever letting something like this happen again. And it's not situated on the map yet. I mean, I assume that there's, with a lot of our other like developing systems, we have stations that are military bases and stuff. And I assume that there would be some kind of military or law enforcement, but we haven't, as of yet, kind of placed them yet. So as far as training opportunities go, you have there's some mining consortiums set up on Garen 3, which I can't seem to find. There it is. So basically, like, they were to help fund kind of the development of the restoration of Garen 2. The idea was that they needed to generate some extra cash to help support it, and so they did a very deep dive study basically on Garen 3 to make sure that it was obviously not habited, and then they started doing some mining operations on it to help subsidize some of the things they were doing. And but otherwise, as I mentioned before, one of the interesting things is, again, you have a jump point over here to Bacchus. So, you know, basically technically one of the bigger Banu systems. And even though actually technically Coral is considered the more commercial route into Banu space, you know, this is a pretty direct line straight into kind of one of the trading hubs of the Protectorate, and is actually one of the sites of the Gathering, which is what the sort of the Banu events where the leaders kind of get together to talk about civilization spanning issues and stuff like that. So yeah, you basically get a lot of people coming through here to go swing into Banu space and see what's going on over there, because they're super fun. So yeah, that's pretty much Garen in a nutshell. Again, if you're a subscriber and you'd like to learn more, you should check out the Galactic Guide from the June issue of Jump Point. And there's also actually some additional information in that same month in the portfolio from that month. We did a thing on Rayari, which one of the founders was actually part of Scheherazades' original team, and the company helped with some of the restoration stuff, specifically with the agriculture and the plants and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun. Otherwise, you know, you should totally check out, if you haven't poked around the star map here, you should never waste an opportunity to do that. It's very pretty and very addictive. Yeah. Again, I'd like to thank our subscribers for making shows like this possible, and of course a big thank you to our entire community for making all of this possible. So it's great, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest...
All right, Garon 2 got, like, they terraformed it with the people still on it. That was pretty horrible. Tiber got taken over by the Vanduul. The Vanduul clans fight amongst themselves there. There's a great big mining ring where you mine. There's a bunch of ships that are there that you can steal. A lot of adventure in Tiberius, and Yeah, the poor people that died over here. I think we're gonna watch one more, and then I am going to go to bed. So all of a sudden, I'm getting tired. The good news is that Friday I'm not working, so I should probably get on early, and I'll be streaming Anthem before Oxford comes on, and then I'll do a handoff to Oxford Friday. I'm an electromechanical engineer, fix-it guy. I work on machines for Ford Motor Company.
Hi there, I am the archivist Sherry Heiberg, and welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It's
for those who
Eyebrow
don't know,
Sherry.
Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy is a program that the other writers and I do every couple of weeks.
So the last one, she was like dressed in all black, and her hair was a little bit darker, and she looked like Wednesday from the Addams Family. I found it quite entertaining. On her Wednesday. Hi.
I am the archivist Sherry Heiberg, and welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. For those who don't know, Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy is a program that the other writers and I do every couple weeks or so to take you on a journey throughout the lore and history of the star systems we have made for you, the players. Now that we have gotten that exciting introduction out of the way, let's explore one of the cooler star systems, the Great Centauri Republic.
Oh, great, the Centauri Republic.
Let's go this way.
The Centauri.
All right, so here we have the Centauri star system. It is a member of the UEE. It is not an independent republic, despite what I may have just said. This right here is
She'd be fun at a party.
It's an A-type
Sure.
main sequence star. Main sequence meaning that it burns hydrogen. It is a very young star. It's about, let me just double check here. It is around 280 million years old because A-type stars are generally short-lived, around 300 something, like between 300 and 400 million years old is the average that we've found so far. They burn blue-white to the apparent eye, so they're very pretty, they're very massive, a couple of times more massive than our sun, and they are, I think I already said they were very pretty, but they are very pretty. But 1 in 160 stars are A-type, about 0.625%, and eventually they will cool to a red giant. This star is a little bit over middle-aged. One day, like I said, it will one day become a red giant, but that won't be for most likely another 100 million years. And as the scope of human civilization is fairly small, we have plenty of time to exist in a long.
How do they know what it's going to turn into 100 million years from now?
White star. Oh, this is Centauri.
There's a lot of
1.
assumption in that.
It is a protoplanet, meaning it's a little small rock, lots of rocks on it. Doesn't have much a core to speak of. One day we'd really like to get the images in the game, in the star map to more reflect some of the misshapen protoplanets that you see, like Ceres, Pallas, the other protoplanet asteroids that are in our system. But for now, we have this little round moon-looking thing. Centauri 1, oops, sorry about that. Centauri 1 is particularly famous because it was one of the first images captured of the system. A photographer who was also a surveyor named Kelly Alden was able to capture an image of Centauri 1 against the sun here. And in the image, the corona of the sun is reaching out as if to embrace the planet. It's one of the more famous images from the Centauri system. You can get it on postcards. Kelly Alden didn't ever really make a lot of money off of it. She took it in conjunction with a survey, so it belonged to the company that she took the photo of. But she did take many more throughout her lifetime and died as a surveyor at a ripe old age. So now that we've gone over Centauri 1, let's see if we can find Centauri 2,
Turn her up a little
also
bit.
known as Yar. It's probably on the other side of the sun here. Oh no, there it is. Hi. All right, so Yar is an inhabited planet. It was terraformed, but it's not really very highly populated. It's kind of abandoned. There was a mining boom that took place over a very short period of time, roughly 100 years or so. So there wasn't much
She's got a
time for
hiss in her
a new
mic, too.
civilization to develop. It's sort of like, it's sort of modeled after the idea of Old West mining towns that are still around, that were built very quickly in order to take advantage of things like gold, silver, and copper in the mountains, and then just as quickly died off and were completely abandoned. Yar is covered in structures like this. It's kind of a dusty, deserty world. Some of the terraforming is more or less being undone in that one of the deserts, the Red Desert, is taking over the planet at large. It's a very slow process. People still live there, just not very many. It has to rely pretty heavily on trade in order to get by. And those who've been with us for a long time may remember it from the first 3 chapters of Cassandra's Tears. It was a setting there. So it's a little bit sad, kind of like how Planet Asura is more or less based on Detroit. This is more or less kind of an Old West sort of planet. Now
Based on Detroit.
to the next planet in
It's
the
gotta be a
system,
nice place.
which I know is a favorite of many people, including me, Saisei. Saisei was created as kind of a love letter to a lot of our Japanese backers that we had in the early days. Saisei was named by, I believe, Rob Irving. The kanji that we have used to represent it, Saisei, is a festival planet. It follows the Japanese naming conventions of planets in our solar system, like Kinsei is Venus, meaning gold planet, Kasei is Mars, meaning fire planet, and now we have Saisei here, meaning a festival planet. So it was meant from the beginning to be a good, happy place for people to go. It is richly terraformed. It's famously beautiful. It was designed from the ground up to be a planet where people could live in harmony with nature. So any pollution on the planet is extraordinarily low, very beautifully climate balanced. It's lush. The Asiatic architecture is very famous. The concept art for this planet is completely gorgeous, and I can't wait for you guys to see it when it's finally built in the game. Another cool thing about the word Saisei is that it's sort of a homonym for rebirth, which is a very important concept for the people here, as the planet and a lot of the system
Saisei is Chinatown.
In the first Tevarin War, which took place between the years of 2541 and 2546. And parts of the planet were destroyed, historical buildings, places like nature places that people had very carefully built in the terraforming process were destroyed. But the planet survived after the Tevarin were driven out, and it is in the minds of the locals better than ever. The landing zone is called Hujin City, or Hujin City, and that's named after the Shinto god of wind. It is also almost a homonym for Hujin, which means wife, so wife city, but not really. All right, let's move on here. We're gonna go to Centauri 4. Centauri 4.
Centauri 4, yes.
It doesn't mean that it's hollow, it just means that the layers inside it never differentiated. So it's kind of an amalgamation of rocks of all different types, and there's no like band of liquid metal or like a metal core. It's just all an amalgamation of rocks, more or less. And as such, it doesn't have a magnetic field, which means it's a very poor candidate for terraforming. Of course,
I wonder how much you're getting paid.
Looks like it's barely on the edge of the green zone there, but I don't think it's ever going to get terraformed. no one's really sure about how to build a core on a planet and kickstart.
Could you imagine if she's worth like $500,000 a year for
pretty complicated phenomenon
making bullshit stories?
Of Synth
Wouldn't that be amazing?
And while we're here on Centauri 4, we actually have a pretty good view of the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt, unlike a lot of belts that we've mentioned so far, is an active mining location. It's very rich in resources and minerals. It's a great place to go if you want to start up a mining operation, but of course you'll have to compete with all the other established businesses there. At least that's the goal that we have in mind for this system. It's a little bit denser than a lot of other asteroid belts in that it has enough mass to form a planet, but never got around to doing it. So that's part of what makes it such an ideal mining prospect, is that there's just so much there. All right. And we have one more planet to go over, Centauri 5, a super Jupiter type gas giant, which means that it is a lot more massive than the planet Jupiter. It's an interesting category, very human-centric. Super Jupiter because it's bigger than Jupiter. It's just what we have to work with.
Super Jupiter.
One of the interesting things about A-type stars is that they, as far as we can tell so far from our observations with Kepler and the like, is that A-type stars tend to attract gas giants. This could be because it's hard for us to see whether or not there are any terrestrial planets, but so far most A-type stars have primarily gas giants circling them. Centauri 5, like a lot of the other gas giants that we've come across, is a good place to get hydrogen. It does not have any, it doesn't have an oxygen-nitrogen mix in the atmosphere like Crusader, which is the only gas giant we've found so far with naturally breathable atmosphere. So there's a very low chance that platform-based colonization will ever take place on this planet. And, well, we've already gotten to the end of this wonderful journey into the great Centauri star system. I hope you liked hearing about some of the history and lore behind this system. We've put a lot of thought into it. We especially worked hard to find a good name for Saisei, to find something that made sense.
Saisei.
To find something that made sense to people. Look at this little planet. Let's just go back to it. It's just good. Just a good planet.
Slevon 700, how are you doing, my friend?
Anyway, thanks a lot, as always, and we'll see you next time.
You came right in.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to,
we're getting ready to raid somebody here. We're gonna raid the old gamer because I'm tired, dude. I don't know why I'm so tired. I announced that I'm going to be streaming early on Friday, so I'm not working. So I'm going to get on like 3 hours before Oxford starts his stream, and then I'll stream for like 3 hours of Anthem on Friday, and then I'll hand it over to Oxford, which will be his Saturday by then. That should be fun. Right now we're going to raid Old Gamer, I do believe. He's playing Star Citizen. He's in the game chilling. You guys will like him. Bring up music. He's in the music. I mean, he's got like all kinds of equipment and stuff. So secretly, this guy's got a lot of music equipment. I think he does it for a living, actually. Old Gamer. See how this works out.
It's done. I did know that though, didn't I?
Loud.
It's been a while.
Loud.
I've been away from the streaming scene for
all right,
while.
guys.
Oh, you know what? Let me
Good night.
change my
See you Friday night.
My gammas was high because reasons. That's still kind of high.